No one showed up for my son's surgery. 3 days later, Mom messaged, "Need $10,000 for your sister's wedding dress." I sent $1 with the note, "Buy a veil," then cut off their access to my accounts. The next morning, the bank manager called. Can you imagine being utterly alone, watching your 7-year-old son go into emergency surgery, your world crumbling around you, only for your family to text you days later demanding $10,000 for a wedding dress? Because that's exactly what happened to me. And let me tell you, that demand? It was the final straw. It shattered something inside me, but it also woke me up. To truly understand how I got to that breaking point, we need to go back. Way back. I grew up in suburban Chicago, in a pretty typical middle-class home with my parents, Martha and Frank, and my younger sister, Vanessa. But our family wasn't typical. Not really. From day one, there was this unspoken rule, this invisible hierarchy. Vanessa? She was the golden child, the star. I was the responsible one. Always. Our old family photos, they tell the whole story. Vanessa, beaming in her dance recital costume, our parents' proud faces radiating beside her. Vanessa, buried under a mountain of Christmas presents. Every tiny achievement, every whim, celebrated like a national holiday. Me? I was the practical kid, the one who never made a fuss. The one who learned pretty early on that if I wanted something, I had to get it myself. By 16, I was clocking hours at the local grocery store, after school, weekends. Not because we needed the money, my parents were comfortable, but because they'd made it crystal clear, my wants, my needs, my future, those were my responsibility. When college applications rolled around, I still remember that kitchen table. My acceptance letter to Northwestern lay there, and my parents exchanged these nervous, almost guilty glances. "We just don't have that kind of money set aside for you, Carolyn," my mom said, stirring her coffee like it was the most important thing in the world. "We always figured you'd get scholarships, or go somewhere less expensive." What she didn't say, what hung heavy in the air, was that they were saving for Vanessa, my little sister, 2 years behind me. So, I took out student loans. I worked 30 hours a week while I was in school. I graduated, business degree in hand, with a mountain of debt. Meanwhile, Vanessa? She bounced between 3 different universities over 6 years, changing majors like outfits, with mom and dad covering every single cent. My first job? Bank teller. I was 22, hungry to start my career, to chip away at those loans. I lived in a shoebox studio, packed my lunch every single day. I remember calling my parents, so excited, to tell them about my first promotion. Personal banking associate. But the conversation was cut short. They were helping Vanessa move into yet another new apartment after she dropped out of college again. At 25, I met Brian. He was charming, ambitious, and he seemed to genuinely appreciate my grounded, practical nature. We married fast, just 8 months later. Small ceremony. My parents complained it was too modest. We always imagined giving one of our daughters a proper wedding. My mother sighed, though they hadn't contributed a dime. Brian and I, we worked hard. 2 years in, I was pregnant with Dylan. It was during my pregnancy that I landed my biggest promotion yet, financial advisor at one of Chicago's most prestigious firms. Brian seemed supportive at first, but after Dylan arrived, everything changed. He started working later, got irritated by the baby's cries, and eventually admitted he just wasn't ready to be a father. By Dylan's second birthday, the divorce was finalized. Brian pays his child support, always on time, but his involvement in Dylan's life is minimal. Every other weekend turned into once a month, then occasional holidays. I don't badmouth him to Dylan, but the truth is, I'm raising our son alone. Dylan, my sweet boy, he's thoughtful, curious, and incredibly resilient, especially considering his health. He was born with a minor heart murmur, so regular checkups are a thing. And he's always been prone to respiratory infections. The medical bills? Substantial. But I've built a good career I can provide for him. What I can't give him is an extended family that truly, genuinely cares. Over the years, this pattern with my parents and Vanessa became disturbingly clear. They rarely called to check on us. They rarely visited. Unless, of course, they needed something. And increasingly, what they needed was money. First, my parents needed help refinancing their home. They'd taken out a second mortgage to pay for Vanessa's latest graduate school attempt, which she, predictably, abandoned after one semester. I helped them get a better rate. I covered the closing costs. $5,000. $5,000 I'd been saving for a family vacation with Dylan. Gone. Then came Vanessa's credit card debt. $12,000. Racked up buying clothes, taking weekend trips. My parents called me in a panic. Vanessa was crying every night, terrified of debt collectors. So, I set up a payment plan. I covered the first 4 months of payments just to get her back on track. Each time, effusive thanks, promises that things would be different. Each time, months would pass in silence, until the next crisis emerged. Meanwhile, if I dared mention Dylan's school achievements or his latest health scare, distracted responses, or a swift change of subject. Your sister is just going through a difficult time right now, my mother would say, whenever I'd voice my frustration at this completely one-sided relationship. Family helps family. You're just better with money, Carolyn. It's always come easy to you. Easy. Nothing about my financial stability came easy. I worked 60-hour weeks, a single mom raising a child alone. I budgeted every dollar. I sacrificed vacations, new clothes, dinners out, all to build a secure life for Dylan and myself. But in their narrative, I was just lucky, naturally good with money. As if my success had simply fallen from the sky, instead of being forged through years of discipline and relentless hard work. This was the family dynamic I had, reluctantly, accepted. The responsible daughter, the rescuer, the one expected to fix everything, while receiving almost no emotional support in return. I'd set some boundaries over the years, little ones, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what happened after Dylan's surgery. Last Wednesday, it started like any other school day. I was making Dylan's lunch, turkey sandwich, crusts cut off, apple slices, a little cookie, when he came into the kitchen, clutching his stomach. "Mommy, my tummy really hurts," he whispered, his face pale, pinched with pain. My first thought was a stomach bug. There'd been one going around his second-grade class. I felt his forehead, no fever. Gave him some water. But within 20 minutes, he was curled up on the couch, crying now. The pain was getting worse, and it was concentrated on his right side. Alarm bells. Right side, abdominal pain, appendicitis. I didn't hesitate. I called my boss, family emergency. Scooped up Dylan. Drove straight to the ER. The triage nurse took one look at him and rushed us back. Within an hour, a doctor confirmed my worst fears, acute appendicitis. Dylan needed emergency surgery. Now, before it ruptured. "We need to operate within the next 2 hours," Dr. Bennett, the surgeon, explained. "The good news is, it's a common procedure. But he'll need to stay in the hospital for at least 2 days to monitor for infection." As they prepped Dylan for testing, I stepped into the hallway. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold my phone to dial my mother. "Mom," I choked out when she answered. "Dylan has appendicitis. We're at Memorial Hospital. They're prepping him for emergency surgery right now. I'm so scared. Can you and Dad come?" There was a pause. A long, agonizing pause. "Oh, honey, today I have my standing hair appointment at 11. And your father was going to clean the gutters." My eyes squeezed shut. I tried to steady my breathing. "Mom, your grandson is having emergency surgery. The hair appointment can wait." "Well, let me talk to your father and see what we can do," she said, sounding put out. "What time is the surgery?" "They said within the next 2 hours. Please, hurry. We'll see what we can do, Caroline. Don't be so dramatic. Appendectomies are routine these days." I ended the call. Immediately dialed Vanessa. Straight to voicemail. I sent a text, explained everything, begged her to come. Then I walked back to Dylan's side, forcing a calm expression I absolutely did not feel. The next few hours were a blur. Dylan was taken to surgery. I was directed to a waiting area. I sat there, utterly alone, watching other families. Husbands comforting wives. Grandparents distracting siblings with games and snacks. And there I was, checking my phone every 5 minutes, desperate for any response from my family. After an hour, my mother texted, "Let us know when he's out of surgery. Your father has a backache today, so driving would be difficult." Nothing from Vanessa. A kind nurse, Janet, noticed me. Brought me a cup of coffee. "Is someone coming to sit with you, Han?" she asked. I shook my head, too choked up to speak. "Well, I'll check on you when I can," she promised, patting my shoulder. "The surgical team here is excellent. Your little boy is in good hands." 2 hours later, Dr. Bennett found me. "The surgery went perfectly," he said, with a reassuring smile. "We caught it before it ruptured. Dylan's in recovery now. You can see him in about 20 minutes. The relief was overwhelming. I thanked him profusely, then immediately texted my parents and Vanessa the good news. My mother responded with a thumbs-up emoji. My father sent, "Great news. Tell the little guy we love him." Vanessa finally responded an hour later. "Glad he's okay." Not one of them asked if I needed anything, or if they could visit. Dylan was groggy when I first saw him. His small body looked so vulnerable in that hospital bed, hooked up to IVs and monitors. When his eyes fluttered open, and he weakly mumbled, "Mommy," I nearly broke down. "I'm right here, sweetheart," I assured him, holding his tiny hand. "The doctor fixed your tummy. You were so brave." He looked around the room. "Is Grandma here? Or Grandpa?" I swallowed hard. "Not right now, buddy. They sent their love, though. They're so proud of how brave you've been." "Will they come tomorrow?" he asked, before drifting back to sleep. "Maybe," I whispered, even though I already knew the answer. The next 2 days were exhausting. I slept in a recliner next to Dylan's bed, waking whenever he did. I worked remotely on my laptop during his naps, trying to keep up with my most urgent clients. Hospital Wi-Fi was spotty. I had to step into the hallway for client calls, constantly worrying about being away from Dylan even for 15 minutes. I sent regular updates to my family, with photos of Dylan's recovery. The responses grew briefer. My mother asked if I'd be able to join them for Sunday dinner. Vanessa sent a meme about hospitals. My father didn't respond at all. No one visited. No flowers arrived. No offers to bring food, or sit with Dylan so I could shower, or get fresh air. By Friday afternoon, when Dylan was finally discharged, my resentment had hardened into something cold and solid in my chest. As I carefully helped my son into the car, mindful of his incision, I made a silent promise to myself. Something would have to change. At home, I settled Dylan on the couch with his favorite stuffed dinosaur and a Disney movie. I ordered pizza, a special treat, and sat beside him, stroking his hair as he dozed off and on, still weak from surgery and medication. "Mommy," he asked during a quiet moment, "are Grandma and Grandpa mad at me?" "No, sweetie," I said, my heart absolutely breaking. "Why would you think that?" "Because they didn't come see me in the hospital. Mason's grandparents brought him a teddy bear when he broke his arm." I took a deep breath. "Grandma and Grandpa love you very much. They've just been very busy. It's not your fault at all." He seemed to accept this, but I saw the hurt in his eyes. At 7 years old, he was already learning a painful lesson about our family's priorities. That night, after Dylan was finally asleep, I allowed myself to cry. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, I cried for my son, who deserved so much more support. I cried for myself, always giving, rarely receiving. And beneath the sadness, a simmering anger began to boil. An anger that would soon erupt in ways my family never expected. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear. Dylan was recovering well, moving more comfortably, even asking for pancakes. His appetite returning was a good sign. As I mixed the batter, my phone chimed. A text from my mother. "How is Dylan feeling?" It was the first time she'd initiated contact since before the surgery. I texted back, "Much better, thanks. Eating well today and moving around more easily." I set the phone down, poured batter onto the griddle. Before the first pancake even started to bubble, my phone chimed again. I glanced at the screen and nearly dropped the spatula. "Good to hear. Listen, we need to talk about something important. Vanessa is engaged. Tyler proposed last night. She needs $10,000 for her dream wedding dress. Vera Wong. Once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The boutique is holding it, but needs a deposit by tomorrow. Can you transfer the money today? Family helps family." I stared at the message. Read it 3 times to make sure I understood correctly. My son had just had emergency surgery. My family hadn't visited, hadn't offered any meaningful support. And now, 3 days later, they wanted $10,000 for a wedding dress? I flipped the pancake. It was burned on one side. I tried to compose myself before responding. My first instinct was to fire back an angry message. But Dylan was sitting at the kitchen island, watching me with curious eyes. "Is that Grandma?" he asked hopefully. "Yes, buddy. She says hi." The lie tasted bitter. "Your pancake is almost ready." I decided not to respond immediately. I served Dylan his breakfast, made sure he took his medication, and settled him in the living room with Legos. Then I returned to my phone. It had accumulated 3 more messages. From Mom. "Did you see my text about Vanessa's dress?" They need an answer today. From Dad. Your mother told you about the dress. Vanessa found the one. $10,000. I know it sounds like a lot, but this is her special day. Call us. From Mom again. The boutique closes at 5 today. You're the only one with money to spare. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. I sat down at the kitchen table, a cold, hard feeling spreading through my chest. Money to spare? After paying thousands in medical bills that insurance didn't fully cover. After taking unpaid time off work to care for my son. My phone rang. It was my father. Carolyn, he said, without preamble, when I answered. Did you get your mother's messages about the dress? I did, I said carefully. I'm a little surprised by the timing. What does timing have to do with anything? Your sister is getting married. Tyler comes from money, and they're expecting a certain level of wedding. The dress is non-negotiable. Dad, Dylan just had surgery. I've been dealing with that alone. I have medical bills. I've missed work. $10,000 for a dress is not something I can just pull out of thin air. He scoffed. You work in finance. We know you make good money. This is not the time to be selfish. Vanessa never asks you for anything. I nearly choked at that blatant lie. Dad, she has never once called to check on Dylan. Not once during his hospital stay. Did she even tell you he had surgery? We've all been busy. Tyler's parents are planning an engagement party, and there's been a lot to coordinate. This dress is a limited opportunity. Vanessa tried it on yesterday, and it's perfect. She deserves this. The conversation spiraled on like that for several minutes. My father dismissed every concern, repeatedly emphasizing family obligation and Vanessa's once-in-a-lifetime event. After hanging up, my mother called. Then another text, this one with photos attached. Vanessa, in what I assumed was the dress. A massive ball gown, intricate beading, a cathedral train. It looked like something from a Disney movie. Impractical. Ostentatious. Then came the text that broke me. Thanks in advance. You're the best. Can't wait for you to see me walk down the aisle in this. Tyler's family is so impressed with it. I need your banking details to give to the boutique for the deposit. Love you. Not a single word about Dylan. Not even a pretense of concern for her nephew, who had just undergone emergency surgery. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the phone, and something inside me shifted. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was clarity. I had been used by my family for years, treated as nothing more than a convenient ATM, and I had allowed it to happen. Even worse, I had, by example, taught Dylan that this was what family relationships should look like: one-sided, exploitative, devoid of genuine care. As a financial advisor, I counseled clients about financial boundaries. I recognized signs of financial abuse in their relationships. Yet, I had utterly failed to apply the same standards to my own family. I had enabled their behavior time and again, always hoping that the next time would be different. Looking at my financial situation objectively, I was comfortable, yes, but not wealthy. I had a mortgage on a modest 3-bedroom home. I had a college fund for Dylan, growing steadily, but needing years more of contributions. My emergency fund had just taken a hit from the surgery. My retirement savings were on track, but certainly not excessive. The $10,000 they were demanding? It would mean postponing necessary home repairs, reducing Dylan's extracurricular activities, or dipping into my own retirement. All for a dress that would be worn once, for a sister who couldn't be bothered to visit her nephew in the hospital or even ask meaningfully about his recovery. As these thoughts crystallized, a final text came through from my mother. We know this is a big ask, but remember all we've done for you over the years. Family supports each other. Your sister would do the same for you. That was it. That was when I knew exactly what I needed to do. That afternoon, while Dylan napped, I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop. As a financial advisor, I had the skills, the knowledge, to handle this strategically, not just emotionally. Though, believe me, I was feeling plenty of emotions. First, I reviewed my own accounts. My financial entanglements with my family. Years ago, when my father had a brief health scare, I'd created a joint emergency account with my parents. I'd initially deposited $5,000, added small amounts over time, intending it to be there for a genuine crisis. The account now held just over $8,000. Out of curiosity, I checked the transaction history. What I found stunned me. Dozens of small withdrawals over the past year. 200 here, 300 there. None of which had been discussed with me. The most recent withdrawal? Just last week, while Dylan was in the hospital. $600, with a memo line. Advance for V dress shopping. They'd already been using my emergency fund for Vanessa's wedding expenses, without even telling me. My blood boiled, but I forced myself to think clearly. This was not the time for an emotional reaction. This was the time for setting firm boundaries. During my financial advisor training, I'd attended a seminar on financial abuse and exploitation. The instructor had emphasized financial boundaries, once violated, needed to be re-established decisively and completely. Half measures only invited further exploitation. I picked up my phone, called Robert, the manager at my bank branch. He'd become a mentor to me over the years. "Carolyn," he greeted me warmly. "How's Dylan doing? I heard about his appendix. At least someone had been paying attention to my family crisis." I updated him briefly on Dylan's recovery, then explained why I was calling. "I need to make some changes to my accounts, particularly regarding authorized access. And I'd like your advice on the best way to handle this." I laid out the basics: the joint emergency account, the unauthorized withdrawals, the current $10,000 demand. Robert listened without interrupting. "Unfortunately, this type of family financial entanglement is more common than you might think," he said when I finished. "The good news is, we can take steps immediately to protect your assets." With Robert's guidance, I spent the next hour creating a comprehensive plan. First, I would freeze the joint emergency account. No further withdrawals without my in-person authorization. Second, I'd establish a new, separate college fund for Dylan, with ironclad protections, impossible for anyone but him to access, and only for educational purposes. Third, I would document the history of financial requests and contributions, creating a clear record of their behavior pattern. And fourth, I would send a token response. To make my position unequivocally clear, before they even tried to access the emergency fund again. "Are you sure about this last part?" Robert asked. "It might escalate the situation." "I'm sure," I said firmly. "This has been building for years. If I don't make a clear statement now, nothing will change." After ending the call with Robert, I logged into my banking app. I initiated a $1 transfer to my sister's account. The memo line read, "By avail. This is all you get after abandoning Dylan." Then, I completed the paperwork to freeze access to the emergency account, changed all the permissions. I transferred the remaining balance to a new account, in my name only, leaving just $100 behind. And I set up Dylan's new educational trust with the strictest controls available. No one, not my parents, not Vanessa, not even me, would be able to withdraw that money for anything other than educational expenses. It was now completely protected. As I worked, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger, yes, absolutely, but also a growing sense of empowerment. For years, I had accepted my assigned role in the family, the responsible one, the provider, the ATM. For the first time, I was taking control of my own financial boundaries and, by extension, my relationship with my family. I knew there would be backlash. My mother would cry, accuse me of being selfish. My father would make veiled threats about family loyalty. Vanessa would alternate between sweet-talking and vicious accusations. I'd seen this pattern before, whenever I'd attempted even minor boundary setting. But this time would be different. This time, I had concrete protection in place. This time, I was thinking not just of myself, but of the example I was setting for Dylan. What kind of relationships did I want him to accept as normal? What kind of treatment did I want him to believe he deserved? As I finalized the last details, I heard Dylan calling for me from his bedroom. I closed my laptop, took a deep breath, and went to check on my son. Whatever storm was coming, I was prepared to weather it. For both our sakes. Monday morning, the predicted storm arrived. I'd just dropped Dylan off at school. He'd insisted he felt well enough to go, though I made arrangements with his teacher for limited activity, and arrived at my office when my phone exploded with notifications. 6 missed calls from my mother. 4 from my father. 12 text messages from Vanessa. 2 voicemails. I settled at my desk, steeled myself, and checked the first voicemail. It was my mother, her voice tearful and frantic. "Caroline Elizabeth, what is the meaning of this $1? Is this some kind of joke? The boutique needs the deposit by noon today, or Vanessa loses the dress. Call me immediately." The second voicemail was even more emotional. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this is your sister's future happiness at stake. We raised you better than this. Your father is furious. Fix this mistake right now." The text messages range from Vanessa's initial confusion. "Hey sis, there must be some mistake with the transfer," to sweet talking, "Please, Caroline, you know how much this means to me," to outright hostility. "You've always been jealous of me. If you ruin this, I will never forgive you." I put my phone on silent, tried to focus on work. But by 10:30, my assistant knocked on my door. "Caroline, your mother is here. She seems very upset. Should I send her in, or tell her you're in a meeting?" I sighed. I'd expected this, though not quite so quickly. "Send her in, please. And Lauren? No interruptions for the next 20 minutes, regardless of what you might hear." My assistant nodded, her expression sympathetic but curious. A moment later, my mother burst into the office, her face blotchy with tears and anger. She didn't bother with a greeting. "What have you done to the emergency account? Your father tried to withdraw the money for Vanessa's dress deposit, and the teller said it was frozen. Then we discovered you emptied it except for $100. This is not just your money, Carolyn." I remained seated, keeping my voice calm, professional. "That account was created by me for genuine emergencies, not for wedding dresses. Not for the regular withdrawals you and Dad have been making without my knowledge or consent. We're your parents. We don't need your consent to use family money." "It is not family money, Mom. It is my money that I earned and set aside in case you or Dad had a health crisis or some other genuine emergency. Over the past year, you've withdrawn nearly $4,000 in small amounts without once mentioning it to me." She waved her hand dismissively. "Small expenses. Nothing worth bothering you about. But this dress is important, Caroline. The boutique won't hold it past noon. Vanessa is devastated. Dylan had emergency surgery last week," I said quietly. "None of you bothered to visit him or offer any meaningful support. He asked me if his grandparents were mad at him because they didn't come to the hospital." For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of shame cross my mother's face, but it was quickly replaced by indignation. "We were busy, and hospitals are depressing. We sent our love." A text message is not support, Mom. Being there for family during a crisis, that is support. A $10,000 wedding dress is not an emergency. My mother's voice rose, and I was grateful for my office's solid door. "You have always been jealous of Vanessa, always trying to make her special moments about you. First you refuse to help, then you send $1 as some kind of cruel joke." It was not a joke. It was a statement. I am done being the family ATM while receiving nothing but token attention in return. I have my own family to think about, Dylan. My priority is his well-being and future, not Vanessa's one-day princess fantasy. The argument escalated. My mother's voice grew louder until I was certain everyone in the office could hear, despite the closed door. She brought up every perceived slight from childhood, accused me of ingratitude for all the sacrifices they'd made for me, and eventually, she resorted to threats. "If you don't fix this right now, you can consider yourself no longer part of this family." Something inside me went very still at those words. Is that really how you measure family, Mom? By financial transactions? Because if withdrawing financial support means I'm not family, then what does it mean that none of you provided emotional support when Dylan was in surgery? Were you already not acting like family then? She had no answer for that. Instead, she grabbed her purse, stood up. "This is not over. Your father will be calling you. You have until noon to make this right." As she stormed toward the door, she turned back with a final shot. "And don't bother coming to Sunday dinner anymore if this is how you treat family." After she left, I sat at my desk, shaking slightly, but feeling strangely calm. I'd expected anger, but the reality of facing it was still jarring. My assistant poked her head in a few minutes later. "Everything okay?" I think the entire floor heard parts of that. I gave her a weak smile. Family drama. Nothing to worry about. But by lunchtime, things had escalated further. My father called 4 more times. I sent each to voicemail. Vanessa's texts became increasingly frantic, then abusive. I muted the conversation. At 1:15, I received an unexpected call from Robert at the bank. "Carolyn, I wanted to give you a heads up. Your parents just left my office. They were trying to override the freeze on the joint account, claiming it was an emergency situation and that you were having mental health issues preventing you from making rational decisions." I gasped. "They what?" "They also attempted to file a fraud report, claiming you had unlawfully transferred funds out of a joint account." I explained that as the primary account holder who created and primarily funded the account, You were within your rights to make those changes. I appreciate the call, Robert. I'm sorry you got dragged into this. No need to apologize. I wanted you to know they may try other avenues. They mentioned possibly contacting your firm's management to discuss your concerning behavior. I thought you should be prepared. After thanking Robert again, I immediately went to my supervisor's office, Nancy, to explain the situation before my parents could call with false claims about my mental stability. I had no idea you were dealing with this kind of family pressure, Caroline, Nancy said when I finished, her concern growing. If they do call, I will handle it appropriately, and if you need any time off to deal with this, just let me know. By the end of the workday, I had received notice that my parents had attempted to make 3 separate withdrawals from the now-frozen emergency account, each declined by the system I had put in place. When I picked up Dylan from his after-school program, I was exhausted from the emotional warfare, but resolute. Something would have to give, and for once, it would not be me. Tuesday evening, my phone rang. My father's number. I'd been ignoring their calls all day, but something told me to answer this one. Carolyn. His voice was tight with controlled anger. We need to have a family meeting tonight. 7 o'clock. At our house. I can't do tonight, Dad. Dylan is still recovering, and I don't want to leave him with a sitter so soon after his surgery. Then bring him. This needs to be resolved immediately. Is this about Vanessa's dress? Because my answer hasn't changed. This is about much more than the dress. Now you have made serious accusations and taken actions that affect this entire family. 7 o'clock. He hung up without waiting for my response. I stood in my kitchen, considering my options. I could refuse to go, but that would only escalate things. If this confrontation was inevitable, maybe it was better to face it directly and on my terms. I called my neighbor, Miss Jenkins, a retired teacher who had become a friend and occasional backup caregiver for Dylan. She readily agreed to watch him for a few hours, understanding from my tone that this was important. Take all the time you need, she assured me. Dylan and I will bake cookies and watch that space documentary he's been talking about. Before leaving, I gathered my documentation. A spreadsheet detailing every financial contribution I'd made to my family over the past decade, totaling more than $50,000. Bank statements showing the unauthorized withdrawals from the emergency account. Copies of text messages showing the pattern of contact only when money was needed. Armed with evidence and resolve, I drove to my parents' house, the same split-level home where I'd grown up. As I parked in the driveway, I noticed Vanessa's car already there, along with an unfamiliar luxury SUV. I guessed it belonged to her fiancé, Tyler. My mother answered the door without a greeting, simply turned and walked toward the living room where the others waited. My father sat in his recliner, his position of authority during family discussions since my childhood. Vanessa and a tall, well-dressed man, Tyler, I assumed, sat on the couch. Everyone looked up as I entered. Their expressions ranged from anger to discomfort. Sit down, my father instructed, pointing to a dining chair that had been placed opposite everyone else. The hot seat. I remained standing. Before we start, I want to be clear about something. I am here to discuss the pattern of financial and emotional exploitation that has characterized our family relationships for years. I am not here to be guilt, manipulated, or bullied into providing money for Vanessa's wedding. Exploited. Vanessa stood up, her face flushed. Are you serious right now? Just because I asked for help with my wedding dress. This is not about just the dress, Vanessa. This is about years of one-sided support. About the fact that none of you showed up when Dylan was in surgery. And about the unauthorized withdrawals from the emergency account I established. What unauthorized withdrawals? Tyler spoke for the first time, looking confused. What emergency account? I realized in that moment that Vanessa's fiancé likely had no idea about the family's financial dynamics. This was confirmed when my mother quickly interjected. That is not relevant to the current discussion. Tyler, we are here to talk about Caroline's refusal to help with wedding expenses. I addressed Tyler directly. I created an emergency fund for my parents years ago. Without my knowledge, they have been making regular withdrawals, including funds for Vanessa's wedding preparations. When I discovered this and froze the account, they tried to claim I was mentally unstable to the bank manager. Tyler's eyebrows shot up. He turned to look at Vanessa. Is this true? You told me your sister refused to contribute to our wedding, not that your parents were already using her money without permission. Vanessa looked trapped. It's not like that. Mom and Dad said the account was for family needs, and the wedding is a family need. 10,000FORADRESSISNOTANEED ISAIDFIRMLY ANDSPEAKINGOFTHEDRESS TYLER DIDYOUK and OWT HATWASTHEAMONTBEING REQUESTED TYLER SEXPRESSIONDARKENED 10,000 addresses noted. I said firmly. And speaking of the dress, Tyler, that I know the twasty amount being requested? Tyler's expression darkened. 10,000? Vanessa told me the dress budget was $2,000, which I already thought was excessive. The room fell silent. My mother glared at me for revealing this information, while Vanessa suddenly became very interested in her manicure. I pulled out the folder of documentation I had brought. I think it's time we put all the cards on the table. This is a record of every financial contribution I have made to this family over the past 10 years. I handed copies to each person in the room and continued speaking as they looked at the spreadsheet. $53, $820. That includes helping with the refinance of this house, paying off Vanessa's credit card debt twice, covering Dad's medical bills when he had pneumonia, and dozens of smaller loans that were never repaid. What it doesn't include is any record of emotional support flowing in the other direction. The room remained silent as they absorbed the information. Tyler looked increasingly uncomfortable, darting glances at Vanessa and my parents. Last week, my 7-year-old son had emergency surgery. I called each of you, asking for support. Not money, just your presence. None of you showed up. Not once during his 3-day hospital stay. Dylan asked me if his grandparents were mad at him because they didn't visit. My mother had the grace to look ashamed, but my father maintained his defensive posture. We explained why we couldn't come. You're making this into something it's not. Am I? Because 3 days after you couldn't be bothered to visit your grandson in the hospital, you demanded $10,000 for a wedding dress. How exactly should I interpret those priorities? I turned to Tyler again. Did you know about Dylan's surgery? He shook his head slowly. No, I had no idea. Vanessa shot me a venomous look. Stop trying to make Tyler think badly of us. This is just your jealousy talking. You've always resented that Mom and Dad love me more. The room went deadly quiet at her outburst. The truth, that had always been understood but never spoken aloud, hung in the air between us. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. Vanessa, that is not true. We love both our daughters equally. But the damage was done. Tyler was now looking at his fiancée with new eyes, and my mother couldn't meet my gaze. I took a deep breath and delivered the speech I had been preparing since Sunday. Family means showing up for each other. It means celebrating successes and providing support during crisis. It means care flows in both directions, not just one way. For years, I have been the one expected to give, financially, emotionally, practically, while receiving token acknowledgement in return. That ends today. I am not cutting contact with this family. I am not saying I will never help in a genuine emergency, but I am establishing firm boundaries. No more financial support without genuine relationship. No more one-sided giving. No more treating me like a convenient ATM while ignoring my son. I looked each of them in the eye before continuing. The money I have saved is for Dylan's future and our security. It is not available for designer wedding dresses or any other non-essential expenses. The emergency account will remain frozen until we have rebuilt trust, which will take time and effort on all parts. If you want a relationship with me, and with Dylan, you are welcome to it. But it must be based on mutual care and respect, not financial transactions. The choice is yours. I stood up, gathering my purse and the folder of documentation. No one spoke as I walked toward the door. Just as I reached it, Tyler's voice stopped me. Caroline, I want to apologize. I had no idea about any of this, especially about your son's surgery. For what it's worth, I think you are absolutely right about family priorities. I nodded my thanks to him, noting Vanessa's shocked expression, and left without another word. As I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in years. As if a burden I had carried so long I had forgotten it had finally been lifted from my shoulders. 2 months have passed since that showdown in my parents' living room, and much has changed. Dylan has fully recovered from his surgery, back to his energetic self, riding his bike, building elaborate Lego structures across his bedroom floor. The physical healing was straightforward. The emotional landscape? That's been more complicated. For the first 3 weeks after the confrontation, there was complete silence from my family. No calls, no texts, not even the usual social media interactions. I used that time to focus on Dylan and myself, establishing new routines and priorities, free from the constant background anxiety of anticipating the next financial request. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Morgan, who specializes in family dynamics and boundary setting. Our weekly sessions have helped me recognize patterns I had normalized for so long. The subtle manipulation, the emotional withholding, the implied obligations that were never reciprocated. What you're describing is a classic family system with rigid roles, Dr. Morgan explained during an early session. You were assigned the role of provider and fixer, while your sister was given the role of being taken care of. Breaking out of these roles threatens the entire system, which is why the backlash was so severe. With her guidance, I've been working on maintaining my boundaries while processing the grief of losing the family relationship I had always hoped for, but never truly had. It hasn't been easy, but it has been necessary. The financial freedom has been unexpectedly liberating. Without the constant drain of family emergencies, I've been able to plan a summer vacation for Dylan and me. Our first real vacation that wasn't just visiting relatives. We're going to a beach resort with swimming pools and kids' activities. Dylan talks about it constantly. His excitement is a daily reminder that I made the right decision. I also started that home renovation project I'd been postponing for years. Nothing extravagant, just updating our worn kitchen cabinets and replacing the stained carpet in the living room with hardwood floors. Creating a home that feels truly ours, not just a place we inhabit between work and school. The first crack in the family silence came 6 weeks after our confrontation. A letter arrived. Not an email or text, but an actual handwritten letter from Vanessa. I sat on my back porch with a cup of tea, steeling myself before opening it. Dear Carolyn, it began. Tyler and I have postponed our wedding. After our family meeting, he had a lot of questions about our financial situation and expectations. We've been having long talks about priorities and values that have not always been comfortable. She went on to acknowledge, albeit somewhat grudgingly, that she had been oblivious to Dylan's surgery and health challenges. I realize I haven't been the kind of Anne I should have been, she wrote. I can't change the past, but I am trying to think more about how my choices affect others. It wasn't exactly a profound apology, but coming from Vanessa, it was significant. She closed by saying she wasn't asking for anything, just opening a door to possibly rebuild some kind of relationship in the future. I wrote back a brief, polite note, thanking her for the letter and expressing hope that her conversations with Tyler would lead to a stronger foundation for their marriage. I didn't rush to forgive or pretend everything was resolved, but I did leave the door open a crack. A week after that exchange, a birthday card arrived for Dylan from my parents. Inside was a gift certificate to a local toy store and a note saying they'd like to take him out for ice cream sometime, if that would be okay with me. No demands, no guilt trips, just a small olive branch. I showed it to Dylan, who was excited about both the gift card and the ice cream offer. Can I see Grandma and Grandpa? He asked, his eyes hopeful. We'll see, I told him. Maybe we can meet them for ice cream next weekend. Just for a little while. I'm proceeding cautiously with these tentative reconnections. Dr. Morgan has helped me develop a framework for limited, controlled interactions that allow me to test whether real change is possible, without exposing myself or Dylan to further harm. Meanwhile, I've been building a different kind of support system. My work friends have become more like real friends since I shared some of what I was going through. 2 colleagues and I now have a standing monthly dinner date where we take turns watching each other's children. Miss Jenkins from next door has become something of a surrogate grandmother to Dylan. She takes him gardening in her backyard, teaches him to bake. He proudly brought home chocolate chip cookies last week that they had made together, saving the biggest one for me. Dylan himself has shown remarkable resilience through all of this. Children are perceptive. He knew something was wrong with our family dynamics long before I explicitly addressed it. Recently, as I was tucking him in, he asked a question that caught me off guard. Mommy, is it okay not to give someone something, even if they really want it? I sat on the edge of his bed, considering how to respond. Yes, buddy. It's okay to say no, even to people you care about, if what they're asking for isn't right for you to give. Why do you ask? Joey at school wanted me to give him my new action figure. And he said, best friends always share everything. But I didn't want to give it to him because it was special to me. Was that okay? I hugged him close. That was absolutely okay. Real friendship isn't about taking things from each other. It's about respecting each other and caring about each other's feelings. He nodded seriously. That's what I thought. I told Joey we could play with it together at recess, but it would stay my toy. He got mad at first, but then he was okay. In that moment, I realized my son was already learning the lesson it had taken me 34 years to grasp. Healthy relationships require boundaries. And love without respect isn't really love at all. The journey ahead won't be easy. Family patterns don't change overnight, and there may be more confrontations and difficult conversations to come. But for the first time in my adult life, I feel free. Free to define my own worth outside of my utility to others. I am building a life based on genuine connection rather than obligation, and showing Dylan what healthy relationships really look like. The money I once might have sent for Vanessa's wedding dress is now in Dylan's college fund. The emotional energy I once spent managing my family's crises is now invested in building a joyful life with my son and nurturing friendships that flow both ways. Sometimes, the most profound act of love isn't giving people what they ask for, but showing them where the boundaries must stand. Money can't buy family loyalty, but protecting your peace? That's truly priceless. I would love to hear your thoughts on this situation. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who were taking advantage of you? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult family situations. Share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize their own well-being. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, you deserve relationships that add to your life, not drain it.